Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tim's News Explosion on this Monday, the 12th of December, 2022. Only 13 days until Christmas. We are live on the Wilmsfront YouTube, DLive, and Odyssey channels, as well as the interactive entropy software. You can ask myself a direct question or send through a super chat to support Unshackled Productions. I see that all the regulars are in the chat. P. Cosiman, hello. Melissa and Naughty Design, good to see you all in there. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where we could actually experience a white Christmas, despite the fact it is supposed to be summer in the southern hemisphere. This was put out by the Bureau of Meteorology Victoria last night. The BOM, remember they tried to rebrand themselves to the Bureau, but us Australians, we're going to keep calling them the BOM no matter what. So they tweeted yesterday, today is the last warm day across Victoria for a while. We will see a sequence of winter-type cold fronts crossing the state this week. Snowfall developing above 1,400 meters Monday, lowering late Tuesday, and only lifting on Wednesday. So, yes, there you go. And it was especially wet and windy today where I was. And now it is forecast to get back to proper summer temperatures on the weekend. It's quite timely that the good weather puts itself on for the weekend. Remember, we are in another La Nina summer, which means lots of unpredictable weather, but it was beautiful weather last weekend for the Guns N' Roses concert at the MCG. This weekend it was also good weather on Saturday night for the Billy Joel concert at the MCG. And guess who was amongst the 76,000 people at the G for Billy Joel? Daniel Andrews was snapped at a public event amongst the people there. This was snapped by somebody who was 4 rows above. Like, obviously you would have had his security detail there, but yes, that is we haven't seen Dan Andrews exposed to the masses like that for 3 years at least. And Dan's PR guy, Jeremy Maluta, claimed that he was mobbed by fans, part of the Andrews government Always Live Music Festival, and the biggest of its kind in the southern hemisphere. And PR guy said Melbourne has been buzzing with the city packed, bars full, and hotels sold out. It's left with egg on their face. Critics who said that Melbourne was dead have been left with egg on their faces as Victoria leads Australia back to glory with major events, unrivaled live music, and the friendliest city on earth, says the people who advocated for it to be locked down for as long as possible. And yes, Dan was mobbed by one fan, one of his real life Dan fans, so Emily Ullman. So yes, they are real people, and they sometimes venture to real life. So she tweeted, Billy Joel was sublime, but this was better. So yes, they're clearly the Dan stands. It's ecstatic that their man Dan will be premier. Or he says he's going to serve the full 4-year term, his third term. But we'll see. He's been accompanied in a lot of places by his deputy premier, the premier in waiting or training, Jacinta Allen, infrastructure minister, also from his socialist left faction. Now we have all the lower house legislative assembly seats declared. So Labor will have 56 of the 88 seats in the upper house, which is actually one more seat than the Dan Andrews Labor Party got in the 2018 Dan slide. But that is because of where the swings were in this election, because there was a swing away from the ALP, two-party preferred 2.7%, because the swings were in their safe Labor seats in the northern western suburbs. The swings to them were in marginals in the eastern suburbs. That's why they've actually got one more seat. The coalition is on 27. They'll probably win the Narrabeen supplementary election because of the Nationals candidate who died a week before the election, and the Greens will have 4. Now, tomorrow, when the writs have to be returned to the governor of Victoria, the upper house results, the 8 regions with five members elected, the Victorian Electoral Commission will, the expression is push the button. So what they do with the upper house results is they all feed the upper house ballot paper results into a computer, type it manually, and so then on the declaration day they press the button on their computer software and it calculates who has been elected to the upper house. Now it looks like that Dan Andrews will get a progressive working majority in the upper house with the Greens, Legalised Cannabis Party, and Animal Justice Party. But it looks like that one of Dan's most reliable votes, especially of the past term, Fiona Patten, won't be there as of tomorrow. She has already conceded defeat. Fiona Patten of the Reason Party, formerly the Sex Party. So she was first elected in 2014, re-elected just in 2018, beat Stephen Jolly of the Victorian Socialist just, but it is looking almost certain that Adem Somyurek, the former Labor right powerbroker who ran for the Democratic Labor Party in the North Metro region, will take her seat. And the lefties on Twitter, they were so mad that Fiona Patten looks set to lose and Adem Somyurek return. Adem Somyurek is not claiming victory. He said, well, it's gracious of candidates to concede before counting is concluded. I'd urge caution. LC counts are complex. Every point of elimination may throw up surprises which change the dynamic of the count. I'll wait until the button is pressed before I claim victory. Fiona Patten said, after a wonderful 8 years in Parliament, I'd like to congratulate the successful candidates for Northern Metropolitan Region and indeed successful candidates in Victorian election. Sadly, I won't be joining them in the 60th Parliament, but I do have some homework for them. So obviously her legislative legacies are the 150-meter exclusion zones outside of abortion clinics, which prevents a pro-life activists from handing out information to women who are considering an abortion, getting the heroin injecting room in North Richmond, lobbying for the euthanasia laws, the complete legalization of prostitution in Victoria, And she says here her biggest regret that I could not get legalization of cannabis. Maybe that is what the 3 legalized cannabis MPs will be able to achieve in the next term there. But this could be the end of the Reason Party. And there's rumors that she could go and join legalized cannabis. One of the legalized cannabis candidates who is about to be elected, I can't remember her name, but actually works for the Eros Foundation, which Fiona Patten used to be the president of, the adult entertainment lobby group. So Fiona Patten, before she entered Parliament, was the president of that lobby group. So that'll all be determined tomorrow. There'll be one sitting day of the Victorian Parliament on December 20. That just will be to swear all the new members in. Well, they'll have to swear allegiance to His Majesty the King, which will trigger the Greens, no doubt. Now, there'll also be another sitting day of the federal parliament this Thursday because of the outcome of the National Cabinet meeting on Friday, which was supposed to be on Wednesday. But of course, Anthony Albanese got COVID for the second time. So it was delayed until Friday, where it's held virtually. And Anthony Albanese held a virtual press conference from Kirribilli House in Sydney, where he announced the energy price relief plan. So it's working with state and territories to temporarily cap the price of gas and coal, provide targeted energy bill relief to shield families and businesses, invest in renewable energy. Because yes, price controls have been so successful in curtailing demand and the rules of demand and supply over the history of mankind. Not Anthony Albanese. He looks like he can't meet his promise of a $275 cut in consumers' energy bills. What this as it's called, it's another buzz phrase, energy price relief plan. Well, I will pan it as well. And now it will reduce people's energy bill increases by $230. So your energy bills will still go up, but they'll go up by $230 less. So the rate of increase will be less. Hadron Anti-Bullying says, I can't catch COVID no matter how hard I try. Albo was back out of isolation, even though he doesn't have to isolate legally anymore, but obviously he's the Prime Minister, so wants to set an example. So he's back in, he posted he was back in the Marrickville Hood at one of the local cafes there, which of course triggered all of the COVID zealots, and they do not like the Albanese government's COVID management plan for 2023 because, as Mark Butler said today, they want to move on from the emergency phase. But of course, the COVID zealots, they can't stop and won't stop. So Monique Ryan, Karen from Kooyong, as I call her, moaning Monique, she said, it's not too late to reinstate some sensible public health measures to decrease transmission of COVID-19. Masking indoors, social distancing where possible, workplace ventilation strategy, if for no other reasons, for healthcare professionals. On her own Twitter account, she is very inconsistent when it comes to her own masking. Sometimes she's got it on, sometimes she hasn't. Now, of course, the science has returned this year that masks, cloth masks, surgical masks don't work to stop the transmission of respiratory viruses. And I also noticed that Peter Collignon, professor at ANU, who's been one of Australia's most prominent pandemic commentators has actually reposted a study which shows that actually N95s don't offer that much more protection as well. Now it's also been proven that masks make you stupid. So this is from the University of Queensland, Dr. David Smurden from University of Queensland School of Economics. So analysed almost 3 million chess moves played by more than 8,000 people in 18 countries before and during the pandemic, and found wearing a mask substantially reduced the average quality of player decisions. So the data showed that masks were more likely to decrease performance in situations where there was a demanding mental task with higher working memory load. This is something to keep in mind for occupations in STEM, as well as other professions that demand high level working memory, such as language interpreters, performers, waiters, and teachers. So this is one of the first studies on the impact of mask wearing on the general population. So chess can provide us with an insight as it requires calculation, memory, problem solving, pattern recognition, has been used extensively to measure changes in cognitive performance. So a study found that mask wearing had a negative impact on chess performance. The effects subsided after 4 to 6 hours of playing. Now, obviously, some people would argue that you'd have to be stupid to wear the mask to begin with. So wearing, having the mask on makes you stupider, in fact, affecting your cognitive ability there. But so those masked people you still see around who they look they don't just look like zombies, but they actually act like zombies. It's like they're lost, directionless people. It's actually because they're getting cognitive impairment from wearing the mask there. Now on to the sports report and a World Cup update. So we're getting to the final countdown. The semi-finals are up next, where it is Argentina versus Croatia and France versus Morocco. Morocco, they had a huge victory over Portugal. They're the first African and Arab nation to get to the semi-finals. And of course, France knocked out England because England missed another penalty, but this time it was a white guy. The captain, no less, Harry Kane. Maybe if he was able to wear his rainbow One Love armband, then maybe he would have been able to score the penalty and keep England in the World Cup. So I guess it shows that because obviously in the Euro final penalty shootout, which England lost to Italy, it was all the black English players who missed. So the Harry Kane, a white English player missing, just shows that no matter black or white, England players are just shit at taking penalties. But there another, well, a quite shocking development to come out of the World Cup was the sudden death of a US soccer journalist, Grant Wahl, who was the clown who tried to get into and then got turned away from a FIFA World Cup game wearing a rainbow shirt. He was covering he collapsed actually after one of the games. So Argentina versus the Netherlands, he was found he collapsed and he was unresponsive. And Australians versus the Agenda, he put together this compilation of his activism during the pandemic and then his sudden death.
An American journalist detained in Qatar for wearing a rainbow T-shirt while covering the World Cup has died suddenly, shocking family, friends and colleagues. It's unclear what led to Grant Wall's death.
See, as you can see, the more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
Now, that's one theory about his sudden death. His brother Eric had another theory about why his brother died suddenly.
My name is Eric Wahl. I live in Seattle, Washington. I am Grant Wall's brother. I am gay. I am the reason he wore the rainbow shirt to the World Cup. My brother was healthy. He told me he received death threats. I do not believe my brother just died. I believe he was killed. And I just beg for any help.
So his brother Eric is basically, it sounds like he's accusing the Qatari regime of murdering, or the only way they could murder him because he collapsed and died suddenly, you would think, is through poisoning, which is not the Arab Middle Eastern style. It's the Russian style. They're the nation that poisons people. But if you remember the death of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, he was chopped up into little pieces in the Saudi embassy in Istanbul. So that's the Arab Middle Eastern assassination method. They chop you up into little pieces, and his dead body was found whole there. So that's that theory gone there. And plus, why would the Qatari regime bother murdering him? I mean, his last Substack was talking about the plight of the migrant workers, but he is not the first journalist to talk about their plight. And the non-woke Western world was laughing at Grant Warhol when he got kicked out for wearing the rainbow shirt. They're just like, oh God, what a lame stunt that is. Like, it's not like he damaged the Qatari reputation at all. But what we do know, this is from a Associated Press news report, is that he had developed bronchitis in the days leading up to his death. He wrote on his Substack that he had visited a medical clinic in Qatar. My body finally broke down on me. 3 weeks of little sleep, high stress, and lots of work can do that to you. What had been a cold over the last 10 days turned into something more severe on the night of the USA-Netherlands game, and I could feel my upper chest take on a new level of pressure and discomfort. I went into the medical clinic at the main media center. They said I probably have bronchitis. They gave me a course of antibiotics and some heavy-duty cough syrup, and I'm already feeling a bit better just a few hours later, but still no bueno. So yes, another sad died suddenly. Like, yes, his political stunt was lame in Qatar, but he was only 49, which is, well, there's so many people who are dying suddenly way before they've even reached senior age. Now, moving on to, it was quite a shocking and eyebrow-raising development, and that was another beer hall putsch in Germany of sorts, almost 100 years to the year of obviously the German beer hall putsch in Munich in 1923. Was Hitler and the Nazis' failed attempt to seize power, which of course led to several Nazis being killed. Hitler and and other Nazis were imprisoned. And of course, later Hitler was able to seize power through democratic means. So there was 25 people arrested in this plot where they planned to storm the Bundestag, the German federal parliament there. Now they're the two most prominent members of this plot is Heinrich the Eighth. I think I've read those Roman numerals right. Prince of Rios. So he is obviously one of the descendants of the German royal family, and so he is part of what's called the Reichsbürger movement, which is they don't. People of the Reichsbürger movement do not recognize the Federal Republic of Germany as a legitimate German government. They want to restore the German Empire, which existed from 1871 to 1918, the end of World War I. They also want. They also believe that German territory that was part of the German Empire, that land should be returned to the Germans. And now another prominent member of this plot was former Alternative Deutschland Bundestag member Brigitte Malstack-Winkmann, who's also a judge in Berlin. So the prince was going to be head of the council, while the judge was going to be the justice minister there. Now, based on my calculations, if history is repeating itself, with obviously the beer hall putsch I just mentioned in 23, and now this failed coup in 2022, it should, because obviously Hitler and the Nazis came to power in 1933, 10 years later, that Germany should have a nationalist government in power by 2032, if history is repeating itself in Germany. Germany is in a very bad place. Freedom is incredibly suppressed there, with wrongthink raids on people for posting the wrong things on social media. Merkel opening the floodgates during the migrant crisis. They've had some of the most draconian COVID passport, mask mandates in place, aside from Australia, of course. And of course, they're facing an energy crisis this winter as well. So they do have, and obviously inflation is out of control. It's nearly hyperinflation. So there are a lot of Weimar type conditions in the current Federal Republic of Germany. And fun historical fact is that what you all know as the German flag of the Federal Republic of Germany was also the Weimar Republic flag as well. Now, moving on to, well, the main crux of the show, the degeneracy report. At the end of my Wilmsfront featured interview with ex-Qantas captain Graham Hood, I had a brief news explosion where I brought you that a local Melbourne LGBT groomer event at the Melbourne Pride Centre in St Kilda, Glitter Nova, which was aimed at 12 to 25-year-olds, was postponed because there was plans to protest at this groomer event. This was the XYZ's headline here by David Hiscock: Total Victory groomer drag show shut down by protest rumors. So it mentions, XYZ mentions that they themselves, they say they were proud to have played its part, because messages surfaced on Telegram channels XYZ News, Turning Point Australia Meditation Socialist Yarn Chat, run by suspected NSN members. The post spoke about protests being planned at the event by a group calling itself People Against Pedos. And of course, the main performer there was that, what is it, psychedelic lizard drag queen, Balazi Bazaar, who was also at the Moonee Ponds Youth Fest grooming event, which was at the school holidays in October, also aimed at 12 to 25-year-olds. Now, there were several Proud Boys who turned up in person to protest, even though the groomer event itself had been cancelled. But Victoria Police decided to move them on because what do they call themselves? The LGBT. What is it known though? The Queer Community Defence Call. They all rallied outside the Pride Centre, and this is their new catch cry. And you could see that even though they were protesting outside, a lot of these cucks had masks on as well. And now their slogan, "You'll always lose in Melbourne." These are people who claim that they're the real counterculture and rebels, even though, well, that slogan, "You'll always lose in Melbourne," is basically saying we run Melbourne, we are the establishment. I mean, they've got their, they were protesting outside of the Pride Centre that was funded by the taxpayer. The Dan Andrews government gave Victorian taxpayer money to build that centre. The Victorian Liberal opposition, they were never going to decommission it. So they have the most sympathetic government they could possibly dream of, yet they still think that they're oppressed. I mean, seriously. Now, the latest Twitter files to be released. Obviously, part one was about the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story, spearheaded by the former trust and legal officer, Vijayda Gandhi. Part two was about the Twitter blacklisting during the pandemic, putting up alarmist voices like Eric Fiegel Ding, who is not a medical doctor but a nutritionist, and suppressing actual experts like Stanford epidemiologist Jay Bhattacharya. And then parts 3 and 4 were about how President Donald Trump was deplatformed or suspended from Twitter, I should say. And Twitter owner Elon Musk, he's chosen a particular sympathetic journalist to go through the Twitter files and publish them on their Substacks, as well as a tweet thread. Now, of course, the defenders of all of this censorship suppression say that, oh, it's a big nothing burger here. Like, of course, Twitter, moderated. There's nothing to see here. But of course, there was never actually any smoking gun or concrete evidence that the suppression of conservatives and right-wing libertarian people who didn't support lockdowns, masks, and vaccine mandates, there was never any concrete evidence that they were suppressed and targeted for suspension. But now we have the smoking gun. It's no longer a conspiracy theory. It is a proven conspiracy. But probably the most disturbing thing to come out of the Twitter files, well, it's actually when I say it didn't directly come out of the Twitter files, but there was a result of them was the re-examination of former head of trust and safety at Twitter, Yoel Roth. So this was the guy who was charged with getting rid of child exploitation on Twitter. So Musk said that Twitter had refused to take action on child exploitation for years. His comments came in response to news that Ann Collier, Erlani Abdul Rahman, and Leslie Podesta, Democrat operative John Podesta's niece, resigned from Twitter's Trust and Safety Council that robbed ex-Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, rubbed him the wrong way, who flatly replied, "Musk, this is false." Musk in turn dressed down Dorsey. He responded that when Ella Irwin, who now leads Trust and Safety, joined Twitter earlier this year, almost no one was working on child safety. Musk also noted that Ned Zekel and Para Agua, who briefly served as Twitter CEO after Dorsey resigned, rejected Irwin's request for more resources to tackle the issue. Musk swiftly fired Segel and Aro after taking over the company and made it a top priority immediately. And the story goes on to mention that Yoel Roth, he appears to have, this is on the Super Contra Substack by Pedro Gonzalez. In his doctoral dissertation, because he's got a PhD, entitled "Gay Data," Roth argued that minors should have access to Grindr, an app that enables gay men to instantly pinpoint each other using GPS technology. Make no mistake, as Vice News Colourful put it, Grindr is more about hooking up than dating. It's basically a 24/7 merry-go-round of sex in your immediate locale and uses geolocation to provide an approximate location of the closest users to serve up on the nearby grid. Roth was gay, noted in his paper that he was documenting, analyzing my own use of these services. As of December 11, Roth's dissertation has been withdrawn from University of Pennsylvania's website. It's still available to readers. So in one section he wrote, while gay youth-oriented chat rooms and social networking services were available in the early 2000s, they have largely fallen by the wayside in favor of general purpose platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat. Perhaps it is truly representative of increasing absent demand amongst young adults for network spaces to engage with peers about their sexuality. It is worth considering how, if at all, the current generation of popular sites of gay network sociability might fit under the overall queer landscape that increasingly includes individuals under the age of 18. Even with the service extensive content management, Grindr may be too lewd or too hookup oriented to be safe and age appropriate resource for teenagers, but the fact that under 18 people are on these services already indicates that we can't readily dismiss these platforms as out of hand as laiki for queer youth culture, rather than merely trying to absolve themselves of legal responsibility, worse, trying to drive teenagers out entirely. Service providers should instead focus on crafting safety strategies that accommodate a wide variety of use cases for platforms like Grindr, including possibly their role in safely connecting queer young adults. So yes, that was the guy who used to be a former head of trust and safety at Twitter. Now, moving on to the degenerate Sam that I mentioned to you last week. Sorry, not Sam Bankman-Fried, the fraudster from FTX, who is still at large in the Bahamas, and rumored that in his Bahamas share house they were having orgies there. I'm talking about the degenerate Sam, degenerate Sam connected to the Democrat Party. I'm talking about Sam Brinton, the deputy Deputy Assistant Director for Nuclear Waste Management in the US Department of Energy. Now, I talked about last week how he was charged with felony theft of a woman's suitcase at St. Paul Minneapolis Airport, but now he has there's a felony warrant out for his arrest with a second baggage theft, this time at Las Vegas Airport. This was the news here.
An Energy Department official is accused of stealing luggage from Harry Reid International. The 8 News Now investigators learning a felony warrant has been issued for Sam Brinton, a Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Biden administration. Sources tell us Brinton is caught on video stealing the luggage. Brinton is accused of similar crime in the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport.
And now looks like that Sam Brinton, he's also looks to be a fraud like Sam Bankman-Fried, but in a different way. Now, a LGBT writer at LGBT Nation. This was by Wayne Benson, who basically says that there is not much proof to substantiate Sam Brinton's story that he was subject to cruel gay conversion therapy. And he also claimed in a 2010 interview that when he came out to his parents that his father responded with a punch to the face, and he alleged that years of abuse resulted in several trips to the emergency room, and claiming my dad held a gun to my head multiple times. And so Wayne Benson says in Sam Brinton's story, too good to be true. They've never been able to track down the so-called torture center that Sam Brinton claims that he was subject to conversion therapy. So supposedly it was supposed to be at some. If I go through this article further down, it was supposedly at a strip mall somewhere in Orlando. So yes, he could basically be a con man who's basically used a sob story to rise up the pole of the LGBT grievance industry. He worked for the Trevor Project before he was appointed to the Biden administration, and also on the side as well led instructional videos on pup play and obviously was quite open about a kink culture. A lot of people are saying that he looks like a bald Matt Damon or a bald Jesse Plemons, who also looks like Matt Damon as well. So, I mean, now the question is, was he hired? Were they hired just to fill a diversity quota? I saw a few people half joking on Twitter that the story of the two Sams, Sam Bankman-Fried and Sam Brinton, is why we need to bully freaks and geeks again, which I think is going a bit too far. I mean, I don't think you need to start flushing their heads in the toilets at school anymore. But yeah, certainly celebrating these types of people who, well, as is proven, have, to put it mildly, very poor personal shortcomings, and now they're victims of their alleged crimes. Now, on to another degenerate, another Project Veritas hidden video. So they managed to get get the Dean of Students at the Francis W. Parker private school in Chicago, Joseph Bruno, to talk about the LGBT sex ed he was teaching the students.
I had like our LGBTQ plus health center come in. They were passing around butt plugs and dildos to my students, talking about queer sex, using lube versus using spit.
Meet Joe Bruno, Dean of Students at the prestigious Francis W. Parker Private School in Chicago, which happens to charge $40,000 per student.
They're just like passing around dildos, butt plugs. The kids are just playing with them. They're like, how does this butt plug work? How do we do, like, how does this work? That's a really cool part of my job.
Parents might be stunned to learn that Bruno's version of love and acceptance means handing out sex toys to underage students.
So I've been the dean for 4 years. During Pride, we do a Pride Week every year, and I had our LGBTQ plus health center come in. They were passing around butt plugs and dildos to my students, talking about queer sex, using lube versus using spit.
Who is this?
This is an LGBTQ plus health center came in to talk to my high school students. Nice. They're just passing around dildos, butt plugs. The kids are just playing with them. They're looking at them.
In the school?
In a classroom.
Wow.
Yeah. While I'm sitting there. Then we had a drag queen come in, pass out cookies and brownies and do photos.
That's so amazing. And everybody's cool with that, like the butt plugs and the dildos. Nobody complains.
No.
I mean, if the parents found out, would they?
No. It's queer sex. This is the drag queen that came in.
What's her name?
Alexis Bevels.
Alexis Bevels.
And just hung out in my classroom.
And was there?
Or hung out in my office.
You have so much freedom. So much wiggle room.
So much freedom. So much money.
I mean,
to do stuff.
Trustees are okay with that too? They don't know.
They would. It's I wouldn't even run it by them. Why would I run it by them? They would be like, oh my God, that's wonderful.
Yeah. How old were the kids with the classroom?
14, 18. They're like, how does this butt plug work? How do we do, how does this work?
Right.
So yeah, that's a really cool part of my job is I don't have to worry about stuff like that.
Now, the school fired the dean and he was arrested. I'm just kidding. The school defended him and said that, he was stitched up by a right-wing activist group. This is what the school said, which was communicated in a news report that I'm just going to play for you, and also has reaction from Project Veritas founder James O'Keefe.
An elite private school in Chicago is facing online criticism after a dean was apparently recorded by a right-wing activist group.
You mean journalism group?
Talking about the school's sex ed programming. Francis Parker School in Lincoln Park is the latest target of Project Veritas.
You mean news subject?
One of its contributors recorded a video that appears to show the school dean saying sex toys were shown to students as part of a discussion.
You mean passing around butt plugs?
The school released a statement saying Parker's Board of Trustees supports the inclusivity of its curriculum. A school spokesperson said the dean was filmed without his knowledge or permission.
You mean he's being honest?
While describing one example of our inclusive LGBTQ+ affirming and comprehensive approach to sex education. Project Veritas deceptively edited the video.
Even this anchor doesn't believe that bullshit.
Project Veritas deceptively edited the video with malicious intent.
So yes, there'll be no consequences for this dean, Joseph Bruno. The school is backing him, and they're proud of their inclusive sex education program, despite the fact that butt plugs and dildos, you can't buy those until you're 18, yet he was passing them around in the classroom to underage children, and was saying how much of a cool part of his job was. And yes, there appears to be no outrage from the parents who are paying 40,000 US per annum for tuition. So at least it's not the US taxpayer paying for this inclusive sex education. So yes, in Chicago, Illinois, parents are happy to pay $40,000 per annum for their students to be in a LGBT inclusive sex ed class where butt plugs and dildos are handed around, and a drag queen gives them cookies and brownies there. So yes, that's Chicago for you there. Now, moving on to the Biden administration's latest geopolitical masterstroke. And now, of course, Joe Biden, of course, has said that Vladimir Putin can't stay as president of Russia because of his invasion of Ukraine, which... Why did Joe Biden give Russia such a great prisoner swap trade deal, which former President Donald Trump said it was a terrible deal, it was stupid, unpatriotic embarrassment. So Biden traded the ex-WNBA basketball star. So that is Brittany Griner, who took her prescription cannabis medication into Russia where it's illegal, which was pretty stupid of her. She was planning to play in the Russian basketball league during the WNBA off season. So she was traded for a notorious Russian arms dealer, Victor Bout. Meanwhile, there is Paul Whelan, a former US Marine accused of espionage and who was sentenced to 16 years in prison. So apparently the Biden administration is working on a prisoner swap there. So former President Trump said, "What kind of deal it is to swap Brittany Greer, a basketballer who openly hates our country, for the man known as the Merchant of Death, one of who is the biggest arms dealers anywhere in the world and responsible for thousands of deaths and horrific injuries." So yes, obviously the Biden administration, they're tough on the talk, but yes, when it comes to actually trying to get a deal with Russia, very poor. But yeah, they'll still obviously still keep sending billions in aid to Ukraine. That's no problem. That's easy. Writing a check is easy, but obviously the actual hard part of geopolitical is hard for the Biden administration. And now I've covered briefly last week the Chinese Communist Party's incredible backflip on COVID zero after the widespread protests. So the CCP, they are ending the sending people to quarantine camps. Mild cases now isolate at home. You don't need a health pass test to go to work or a restaurant. They're even saying to Chinese that you can you can start to take off your mask, and that the amount of deaths with the mild Omicron strain is similar to the seasonal flu. It's quite something to behold. And the COVID zero zealots, their last COVID zero model is just basically collapsed in a week. Basically, I mean, it's one of the fastest backflip 180. Well, I guess when you're a totalitarian government, you don't need to worry too much about the political damage of a backflip. But a lot of China activists were predicting. China commentators were predicting that the CCP wouldn't give up so easily because they didn't want to give the message that protests worked. So everyone's been surprised here. Now, of course, it's almost 3 years to the day when the first cases of COVID-19 were diagnosed in Wuhan. And back in October 2019, there was a coronavirus pandemic simulation by the John Hopkins Security Center and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They've just done another pandemic simulation, except one which is spreads super fast and affects young people and children really quickly. So I don't know if they're planning another pandemic. There, of course, we still don't know where COVID-19 originated. Did it come from the wet market in Wuhan, or was it engineered in the Wuhan Institute of Virology and leaked out due to poor safety and security? And was it engineered using funding from the US government, which from the organization, the NIH department, which Dr. Anthony Fauci worked at? He's come under severe scrutiny the past 2 years because of his support of gain-of-function research. He's retired from his position now, though he can't retire from scrutiny with the new Republican House majority going to bring him to account. And Twitter owner Elon Musk has triggered the COVID Twitter crowd even more with saying his pronouns are prosecute Fauci. Yet they're still not going to leave Twitter because they all got famous on Twitter. Like the left can't quit Twitter, but nationalists, they've got Gab and Getter and Parler. I mean, the Unshackled and myself, we're all on those platforms there. And so, Fauci, even though you're retired, you'll have to clear your calendar there because the House Republicans will be just getting started with you. All right, that brings us to the end of another Tim's News Explosion. Now, I know I promised last week that I'd bring you my interview with Topher Field at the Melbourne Underground Film Festival screening of Battleground Melbourne last week, but I haven't been feeling the best. I've had a bit of fatigue, so hopefully I'll get it done. Get it done this week. There's no Wilmsfront this Thursday, so I've really got no excuse. I don't know what's wrong with me. Maybe maybe I've got long COVID and I don't even know it yet, because apparently every type of illness or a poor. If you're feeling poorly at all, then it's long COVID. Even though I've never tested positive on a COVID test. Of course, anything, if you're not feeling well, long COVID. But the final night of the Melbourne Underground Film Festival was on Saturday, same night as the Billy Joel concert, and Battleground Melbourne won the best film there. Richard Wollstonecroft, the organizer and host of Report from Tiger Mountain, presented them with Damien Richardson. He is formerly Cafe Locked Out co-host, of course, ran in the federal and Victorian elections. So thank you everyone for watching as usual. Stay tuned for more reports from Tiger Mountain now that Richard is done with his festival. Start reposting them again, and also my interview with Topher Field. And of course, keep checking out the unshackled.net from for all our articles and also Unshackled Productions archive. Good night, everybody. Stay safe, stay sane, and stay out of the wild weather. Good night.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.